Dope girl in red hoodie, cries Wolf. She went for the first time on her own across town to visit her grandmother at Elmwood. Despite her mother's warnings to play it safe, she spoke to a stranger under the old Elmwood tree. Later, when she arrived at her grandmother's cottage, the stranger was in her bed. He soon attacked her. She screamed, she cried wolf, and the local park ranger came to her aid, rescuing her. Fortunately, she lived to tell the tale, and she now shares with us that she's all G. Recently, she created a Facebook page and all the local women are supporting it. There they share their stories of where they've encountered danger. They aim to encourage awareness in women to help protect them. And that is the story of the dope girl in the red hoodie. Do you recognise this tale? Yes, you're right. It's Little Red Riding Hood, otherwise known as Little Red Cap, or even the false grandmother in the Italian version. In fact, there are 60 versions or more that have emanated from across the globe from centuries ago. Her story could be yours, mine, or anyone's, male, female, young or mature. Little Red Cap has left her imprint on and her archetypal power in our collective psyche. If you are new at something, a novice, attempting a significant adventure, or perhaps a peak experience, the one that might make or break you, then essentially you're living the Little Red Riding Hood trope. She followed the hero's path, as you have done and will do time and time again. Eminent mythologist Joseph Campbell first brought the concept of the hero's journey to the fore in 1949. And perhaps if you're interested in knowing more about Campbell and his hero's journey, please leave your comments below. Let us know, give us some motivation, because we have this terrific presentation on Gilgamesh, the mythic king of Uruk, ancient king, and it follows those same steps of the hero's journey that Little Red Riding Hood followed and that you're following daily. Now back to the story. We are all heroes on our life journey's path. We're attempting to get from point A to point B so we can achieve our dreams and become the best we were born to be. Whether you are the girl in the red hoodie, an African tribesman, or any sentient being, the psychological and symbolic journey of the hero follows a circuitous path of 12 steps. It takes us from the starting blocks of our current reality to the end point, where we emerge from the benefit of our experience and lessons, braver, wiser, better, and more spiritually evolved. Carl Jung in 1923 referred to this expansion of the self's capabilities and conscious awareness as a state of self-actualization. To understand the concept, let's overlay the Little Red Riding Hood, the Novice Archetypes journey on the 12 steps. Well, steps 1 and 2 of the hero's journey. First, she left the ordinary world as she knew it, and second, heeded the call of the wild, her inner drive to self-actualize, to get cracking on her next challenge. Step 3, but she faltered on the path, pausing, talking to a stranger. She might have decided to refuse the call at this point. She could have made the choice to change direction, get back, or keep going. As we know, she stayed the course and made it to her original destination. Next, we're up to step 4 on the hero's journey. The hero encounters a mentor who imparts wisdom. In Red Cap's case, it's an unlikely mentor. It's the wolf. But he's one who'll teach her the hardest lesson of her life. We might not want, but we do need mentors like this, and I'm sure all of you have come across someone who was quite cruel to you, but in the end you thought, wow, didn't that help me see life with a new perspective and toughen me up and prepare me for what was to come? Same with Little Red Riding Hood. They intend more to hinder us than to help us, but they do end up teaching us some of the hardest tests along the way. Her other mentor is her mother's voice in her head, otherwise the superego. It continues to engage in a mental wrestle with her, warning her to be careful. So now we're at step 5, and Redcap stands on the threshold between the old world she's leaving behind and the new one she's approaching. This is her last chance to opt out because there are larger risks she faces going forward. In a moment of clarity, she knows to stop sharing with the predator, the wolf. She decides to cross the divide and presses on. At step 6, she is midway to her grandma's place. She has faced a life-threatening test with the wolf who pretends to be her friend. She says to herself that maybe she should not trust him if he turns up again, and suddenly realizes that her cautious mother might turn out to be the best friend she ever had. Before the final approach, Redcap goes deep into her own thoughts. She has entered the cave of despair, step 7. She wonders if the wolf might have dragged her into the scrub and assaulted her there. What then? Her fears are in her throat. She swears to herself she won't be fooled again. Little does the girl know, but the worst of her ordeal, step 8, is about to begin. She faces down the wolf, recognizes his wild features, and knows at once that she's led herself into a sinister snare. But fortunately, her scream attracts a more life-savvy gentleman who's able to manage the wild. It's the woodsman, and she is spared the worst. Her reward at step 9 is life itself. Redcap is born anew, and the grandmother is granted a second chance. Yet the real reward is the wisdom learned from the experiential journey. From trial and error, the novice evolves with a knowing, a greater sense of conscious awareness about who they are, the world, and their limits and strengths in the world around them. Now at step 10, she's feeling all G, so she makes her way back home to her mother's nest. She has her survival story to share. Yet there may be more challenges ahead as she cuts her way back home. But now she's a new person. She's wiser, braver, stronger, and well, at least in the context of making her own way from point A to point B, there'll be differences seen by others in her life, especially a mother. Now that's a handy skill for any adolescent. Okay, continuing with step 11, the resurrection step. For Redcap to continue to grow and mature once the arousal of the near-death by wolf experience fades, she must reflect and self-examine to name the error of her ways. She must reclaim, for example, her fears, her foolishness that are in her shadow. Otherwise, it'll be difficult for her to become whole and integrated. So there's inner work for her to do if she is to live with ease going forward. So now we're at step 12, and little Redcap has made the journey from point A to point B. It's a circuitous route that's taken her back home. By the time of this homecoming, she's thought deeply about what has led her down the wrong path, and she will share the elixir with others. She aims to give them wise counsel, and so then they will not make the same foolish mistakes she's made when they embark on their maiden voyage. But how does one bounce back from the terror and trauma experienced like Little Red Riding Hood? There will certainly be fears and stresses to manage going forward. But what about the psychological damage potentially? What about the disorders, the inhibitions, the repressions one experiences when horrible events impact their lives? Mythimo focuses on what we put into our shadow recesses, these terrible fears and different negative maladaptive emotions such as foolishness. Well, it helps us then reclaim those, work with them and bring them back into our light. For example, foolishness can be tamed to become playfulness and in the right context. So going forward, we need to consider owning our shadow elements, bringing them back into the light, and this is what Little Red Riding Hood has done, and she will live a whole and happier life ever after. thank you for joining with us today. We hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please write in the comments below, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to Facebook, Spotify, Patreon's coming soon. We've got so much material to give you. Mythimo is a very big book. It's got lots of information about the psychological significance of the fairy tales. Little Red Riding Hood is just the beginning, and there's so much more to go into about her and the symbolism and the art. And we know you'll have a lot to offer to this discussion. It's not a one-way monologue. We want dialogue happening. We want to share this experience with you. It'll only get richer for that experience. So on that note, farewell for the moment, but not goodbye. And we look very much forward to seeing you again soon.